anytime that I have ever like gotten off track in life, and whether that be from me just simply getting a little lazy and not doing the things I'm supposed to, or if it's even I'm sick or injured, or it can really be anything along those lines. The core principle always kind of came back to the same thing that I realized, and that's that whenever you get off track and you're trying to get back on track, and there's this like friction that that you're trying to get through in order to get back into your old habits or your old ways that were beneficial, not your negative ways. There's this friction period, and when you're trying to get through that friction period, a lot of times you end up just waiting for it to get a little bit easier, and you're kind of hoping that things are going to kind of start to feel the way they used to before you start doing things the way you used to. So it's like, say you used to be consistent on your meal prep, or consistent on your diet, or consistent on your training, consistent on the time you woke up and went to bed, whatever it may be. A lot of the times, you may be waiting for it to get a little bit easier to start waking up at the same time again, or wait for it to get a little bit easier for you to start training hard again, and wait for things to get a little bit easier for you to start folding your clothes right after you did the laundry, or what, really whatever it may be. But and this is something that I struggle with, and I always have to remind myself that I didn't start doing it because it got easy. It was just as difficult. I just started doing whatever the thing was, and then continued doing it, and it got easier because I kept doing it. It doesn't get easier before you start doing it or as you start doing it. It gets easier once you've built up the repetition and you get consistent with it and you do it every single day. Then it gets easier. It's like, and it never gets like, perfectly easy. It's never like every single day of your life you're looking forward to waking up early and taking a cold shower or going to the gym or whatever it may be, even if you enjoy those things. You're always going to have the days where you're like, fuck, I really don't want to do this. And when you still do it no matter what, that's the stuff that ingrains in your mind and reminds you that you're still able to do things even when you don't want to. And that's what helps you build that consistency. And then from there, it starts to get easier because okay, well, even though I don't feel like doing this and that, I'm still just going to go ahead and I'm still going to do it. So you can't, it's not going to suddenly get easier before you begin. You just have to take that leap of faith and finally start doing whatever it may be, and it's kind of like, you can almost, I was thinking of it the other day, you can almost think of it like a clutch. And when you put your car in first gear and you're slowly letting out the clutch or whatever, and it's slipping until it gets to that bite point, and it's slipping, and if you just keep it there, you're gonna burn the hell out of your clutch, and you're just gonna roast that thing, and then next thing you know, you got to change it out. Versus if if you just go for it and you just let it out and completely let it out, even if you dump it and it's all rough and whatever, if you at least get yourself going, you're not burning the clutch anymore. And it's a very similar situation when it comes to, getting back on track with your habits and whatever it is. The longer you put them off and the more you wait, the longer you stand outside of the cold running water before you walk in the shower, or, the longer you wait before you do your morning push-ups or your journal, whatever it may be, the longer you put off the gym, you just build up this more and more negative resistance, and it just makes it, it makes it a higher likely chance that you're just not going to do whatever you were planning to do. but it also makes it more difficult versus if you just go ahead and send it and do it in the first place. And even if you fuck up and you don't do it right fully, you still got it done, and you can still move on. You can still do it again the next time, the next day. So don't sit there and burn yourself out trying to force yourself to do something that you need to be doing and you want to do, but you're not, because you're just going to make yourself more tired if you just constantly, I'll do it tomorrow, and that's why the stress builds up, and it gets more and more difficult each and every single time. And if you would just go ahead and do the action, start doing whatever it is, it just gets so much easier, and you're going to build up that momentum faster. And I mean, I'm sure you've had time periods in your life where you're like, you're about to do something or whatever, and you're putting it off. And then now when you're finally starting, you're thinking like, damn, if I would have just started right originally when I said I was going to start, I'd be done right now and it'd be over with. And then you start thinking, oh, well, I put it off more. It's like, no, because now you're going to say that again. You put it off a little bit more. Now the next time you're like, damn, if I would have not put it off that second time, I'd at least be done by now. And the more you put things off, the more you're going to want to put them off until it all piles on top of you. And next thing you know, you're just insanely stressed out and you can't think straight. And that's just not the ideal situation you want to get yourself into. And I mean, that's definitely a situation I've put myself into many times in life, and where I am constantly have to remind myself in different ways so that I don't get back into that position. Because it's not easy to do the things you don't want to do. But it's a whole lot harder to just suffer and live that painful life that I just didn't enjoy. And I'd so much rather be doing all the things I do now, even though they hurt in the moment sometimes, just because the way things felt before, I just would not want to go back to that. And it took so much time, and it definitely took, it felt like I was just beating my head against the wall and doing all these things and feeling the same for so long before before eventually I had gotten so far that, I had been doing all these habits and stuff like that for years. And I looked back and I was like, well, shit, I can now see how far my life has come or whatever. It's kind of like a great perspective to that is, if you're thinking about time or whatever, you think a year when you were younger, if you thought like a year in the future or whatever, that seemed like forever. But then if you thought a year ago, it didn't seem as long, or even now, but time when you're younger just kind of felt more far away. But anyways, I feel like most of you guys get my point I'm making here. The thing with life is like you have to just strive for more and strive to bring more out of yourself constantly. Because if you're not constantly striving to bring more out of yourself, you're going to feel so hopeless. And it's going to feel, it's depressing, dude. And it's like, sometimes I look at people and I look at the things they're doing in their life, and, I feel bad for them. And it's like if I was in that position, I would want to off myself. And it's like, why are you just in this endless cycle of not, of not doing anything? And I understand that once you get in that cycle, I always refer it to like a thought loop. And if you've ever done any sort of psychedelic and gotten in, a loop or something like that, then you understand what I'm talking about. But it's kind of like, if you're looping, you don't realize until you get out of the loop that you're in the loop. So, I understand for those people that are going through that stuff. Like, it's difficult because they're stuck in this loop that they can't see because they're in the loop. But as soon as you get out of it, you're like, holy fuck. What was my whole life? What was I doing? And, sometimes you go through this period of life where you start kind of getting stressed out about trying to do everything but to get back into that loop. But the thing is that as soon as you just start getting on the path to bettering yourself, and when I mean bettering yourself, just, taking care of your hygiene, taking care of your health, your fitness, just thinking in a more positive manner. Like, once you get on that track to bettering yourself, anytime you do get in the loop, you're able to just recognize it so much faster. Now, it's still going to have times where you get stuck in that loop and you're not going to realize it. But then you're eventually going to snap out of it, and you're going to identify it a whole lot faster because you've been there before. And if you've been there multiple times and you've had to pull yourself out multiple times, well, guess what? You just have more times of reinforcement that you're able to pull yourself out of that. Don't look at all your failures as, reasons why you can't do X, Y, and Z thing. Don't look at all your failures as reasons why, you can't make it out. You've got to look at them as, I failed, but I still pulled myself out of that. So I know that, I can pull myself out of whatever hole that I dig myself into. And once again, that doesn't mean that you need to dig yourself in a hole to pull yourself out, but it's like, just, oh man, just to take some time to just kind of look at your life and look at the things you do every day. Even like write them down if you have to, and read them out loud. Write down your habits and write down the things you eat and read them out, and just kind of think, like, is this benefiting my life or is it not? And think about, why do I do all these things? Like, and over time, you're gonna think about it more and more. You're like, well, you're gonna attach it to something in your past or whatever, and that's gonna allow you to figure out, okay, well, I act X way because so and so person in my childhood made me feel this way. Why? Because whatever reason. And you can kind of look back on that and then think, what can I fix instead of feeling, what can I fix about whatever my previous problem was instead of filling it in with a coping mechanism, So if it's, that you're insecure or whatever, why was it? Because when you were younger, a bunch of people told you that you didn't mean anything, and that you weren't important or whatever. It's like, okay, well, now you do all these things to prove to yourself that you're not that person, and don't look at it like, because this is how people are going to turn it on you, is you're going to start to better yourself, and then people say, you're just doing all this stuff because you're insecure and you need to prove to yourself that you're worth something. It's like, great, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to prove to yourself that you're worth something and that you can do something every single day. You're not supposed to just have this confidence that comes out of nowhere. That's called an ego. You need to prove to yourself that you are who you are and that you can do the things that you can do. And if you can't and you're still struggling with that insecurity, you get up and you do it again each and every day, and it's gonna drag itself with you. But over time, you're gonna get better and you're gonna get better and you're gonna get through it. It's like, you can't ever fix you can't ever fix the problem if you don't figure out what the problem is and try to fix it. If your car's leaking oil, you can't just, hope that the oil leak stops. Like, your oil leak's gonna stop when you run out of oil. So You got to go find where the leak is, and then you got to go fix it. Like, you have to go figure out what your problems are, find the solution, and fix it. That doesn't mean, go fill in with a bunch of drugs and a bunch of this and that in order to make yourself feel good about the things you're doing in the moment. Go do things and habits and actions that make you know who you are. And it's like, even if you're extremely overweight or underweight and you have an eating problem, it's like, as soon as you start that journey in that path to fixing whatever the problem is, you can begin to start to validate yourself. And even if you don't feel, even if you still don't feel good, that you're working towards something, and that what you're doing is going to lead you to where you need to be, instead of just sitting stuck at the place that you were in the past. Like, don't just stop just sitting where you're at, satisfied or hopeless or whatever. Start taking the steps, and you're going to fail sometimes, and it sucks. But at the same time, it doesn't, because that's going to teach you that you are able to pull yourself out of all of these failures. That so many people just don't want to do anything about themselves, and they just want to complain, and they want somebody to come and comfort them and make them feel better about the way they currently are, instead of actually going through a tiny bit of hardship in order to bring something out of themselves, in order to become the person they need to become. I didn't just become the person who could turn this camera on, turn the light on and start talking to you guys and start just speaking about the shit on my mind. My whole life, I've been an inherently insecure person, too worried about how other people are going to view me, too worried about what XYZ thing, the way I am, and all this shit. And it gets to the point where you realize, like, it doesn't matter. People are going to think what they want to think about you no matter what, whether that's good or bad, So it doesn't really change. Like, it doesn't change anything. You can go better yourself, and that's going to make somebody feel worse about themselves because they don't want to better themselves. It's like, so are you going to worry about, them not feeling good about themselves because you're now bettering yourself? It's like, no, don't not better yourself because it might make somebody else feel inferior. Go do what you need to do. And don't worry if it's going to piss someone off or whatever it may be, and don't even do it just because it's going to make somebody else happy. Do it for yourself, and do it because it doesn't matter what other people think, dude. Nobody, like in all reality, people aren't actually thinking about you and thinking about, the things that you're doing and whatever. And the ones that are, they're just too worried about other people, or even maybe, they're worried about some feature or trait in themselves that they don't want, to portray or something like that. And that's not, that you can use that as a good thing, if thinking about someone else to not try to be like that person or whatever. But if you're on this great path to becoming the person you need to become, and someone's thinking about you, thinking how they don't want to be like you, that's great for them. They can go and live their horrible life, and whatever it is, just do your thing. Start working out. Don't worry about the comments other people are going to make when you start getting in better shape. Don't worry about the comments that people are going to make when you start waking up early. You're going to get people that are going to be like, oh, Jack, why, you're waking up early all of a sudden, or whatever, oh, look at you, Mr. Early Bird. And it's going to get you, and it's going to make you feel, inferior and great. that's just part of the journey. And unless you just experience that and go through it, you're not gonna you're never gonna get past the fear, and you're never gonna get over that. If you just wait until that hopefully disappears by you doing all these other things, it's not gonna happen. You starting to better yourself is definitely gonna make you feel more confident. So it's gonna make you care less about what other people are saying. But there's still gonna be times where you're just gonna have to, deal with it, and that's just how it is. And it sucks that that you gotta listen to all these people make these comments, and that it might get you, even if you don't want it to, even if you know that it's stupid that it gets you, but your subconscious is telling you that, oh no, you should listen to them. It's just the way your brain's wired, and you gotta figure out what you have to do to get past that in order to become something more. Because otherwise you're just going to get stuck in the same position. And don't get stuck in the same position just because someone else wants you to be stuck in the same position. And don't get stuck in the same position because somebody else thinks that the position that you know is better for you isn't actually better for you. If your parents want you to go to college or do this and do that, and you know that whatever path you're going down, whatever trade you're doing, whatever business you're doing, whatever it may be, if you know that that's better for you, then don't be afraid to not listen to them, and don't be afraid to make them upset and make them disappointed because you're not doing what they want you to do. Because as soon as they see that you did what you wanted to do and you made it work, they're going to be way happier that you went with your path and not theirs. So do what you need to do, not what all these other people want you to do. They don't need you to do it, they want you to do it. And you need to do what you need to do. And whatever that may be, inside. And even if you don't, somewhere subconsciously, and you just have to find it within yourself. And don't use that as an excuse to say that you don't know what your problem is if you really do know what your problem is. So start spending some time in your thoughts and figure something out. Because if I could do it, so can you.